everyone, in today's video we'll be making this Realization Par inspired dress. Also, all the jewelry I'm wearing in this video is from Ana Luisa from the last video, and if you guys would like to check them out, my coupon code is still available for a short amount of time, so I'll link all of that below. Let's get into the video. I'll be using Pattern Lab's skirt and bodice blocks, which will be linked down below. Trace the back skirt block. The full length will be 28 inches and half an inch seam allowance all the way around. Trace the front area just before the dart and pivot the dart closed. Trace the rest of the skirt and add half an inch seam allowance all the way around except at center front. Same front length of 28 inches. Trace the front bodice block and rotate the dart to the center of the waist as shown. Draw a perpendicular line towards center front from the bust point. Draw a parallel line underneath 3 inches down. Mark the 3 inches on the dart and draw a line towards the side seam perpendicular to the dart. Drop the armhole by half an inch and blend to 0 degrees at the side seam. Draw a line parallel to the dashed line 1.5 inches up. Blend into the armhole as shown. Cut out the pieces. Tape together the waist pieces, center front panel to side panel. Mark the keyhole opening at center front 3/8 inches wide and halfway down. Draw 2 lines at the side of the dart as shown. Cut out the piece and cut down the slash lines, leaving a bit attached. Add half an inch seam allowance all around the underbust panel except at center front. Trace the back bodice and pivot the dart closed. The side seam height should be equal to the top of the underbust side seams, excluding seam allowance. Cut 2 straps 1 inch by 18 inches and sew right sides together at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Cut 2 front tie pieces 1 inch by 32 inches and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Sew 1/4 inch along the armholes and the top neckline keyhole. I ended up sewing the keyhole lower by 1 inch. Clip the keyhole and trim down the seam allowance a bit, and clip the corners and turn inside out. Sew the gathers from notch to notch with a 3mm stitch and the same stitch 1/8 of an inch above the previous. Leave the thread hanging on both sides. Gather both sides evenly until the top bodice piece matches the width of the top of the underbust piece. Pin the bodice pieces right sides together. Sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Iron in a 1/4 inch of the top neckline, stitch it down and tie the ends. Use a safety pin to pull the 32-inch tie through the neckline casing. Pull the tie so it sits just inside the casing opening. Top stitch on the 18-inch strap, top and side. This will also secure the tie. Sew the top edge of the back bodice panels right sides together and then understitch the seam allowance. Sew down the back skirt darts matching dart legs and sewing to the dart tip. Use the bobbin thread as a guide. Pin the back skirt pieces to the front skirt panels right sides together and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the back bodice panels to the front bodice right sides together and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the bodice to the skirt right sides together and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Iron the hem in 1/2 inch and top stitch at 3/8 of an inch. Take a 3-inch piece of strap and fold in half around a ring. Top stitch it to the back of the dress 3.5 inches away from center back. Loop the front strap through a slider, then through the ring and back through the slider and sew that down. I'll link a blog post tutorial to clarify that. Pin the center back right sides together and mark the zipper end with an alternative colored pin. Sew with a long stitch up to the pin and continue to the hem at a normal stitch length. Iron the seam allowance flat and pin the zipper centered on top. Sew the zipper to the seam allowance only using a zipper foot. Top stitch around the zipper on the outside of the dress. Clip open the zipper seam. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. See you in the next video.